Do the weeks. We share some little insights from Brother Hamidus, and we will then get on to life. Okay. So one of the things that I actually just want to share a little bit, and Dals has said quite a bit already, a little bit of our Israel trip, but the truth is that there are a lot of little things that we actually learn from our really everyday lives on how we are going to be doing things and how we live, and we can see from literally from every aspect of where we are, and every day there's something new. And because we are now in the week of Holocaust Memorial Week, it's a bit of a scary place, because some of the things that we're seeing, some of the things that we are actually seeing are recognizing that right now we're in a different kind of, I guess, turmoil, again, with all the buildup of anti-Semitism. And right now we're seeing it, I don't know if anybody saw, but this video of a survivor, a 94-year-old survivor, giving chizuk to hostages, released hostages and their families, and saying like how he came out of the darkest hell. And look where I am, living in Israel at 94 and thriving and living. And it was kind of like a little bit of a stark reality of really understanding, and are we getting it? Are we getting it? Aren't we getting it? What are we really supposed to be doing? Should our leaders, our Torah leaders, be saying to us, you know what, man, we all need to pack our bags, because it's not going to really get better. It's not going to get better. We're watching this Israel being pushed and whatever it is, like forced into doing something that we shouldn't be doing. The world should be standing up and saying, are you stupid? Look at these terrorists back with absolute zero in return. What are we doing? We clear out space, we win land, it belongs legally, if it were any other country in the world, it belongs to that country. That's what happens in war. And what do we have? We are now faced with, get your soldiers out, move away, let all the people come back. Are we mad? And I'm trying to sort of find this place that sort of says, okay, and we have to remind ourselves at every moment of the day that whatever it is, HaKadosh Baruch Hu runs the world. But it feels a little bit challenging. You give it to us, now you're going to take it back. Like, what do we need to do for you to give it to us and keep it? Hang on 1 second, sorry. So, a few weeks ago, and I can't remember if I shared this with you, but one of our grandchildren had a little bit of a disagreement with his parents, and he was given a consequence, and the consequence that they weren't going to then take him to his friend, and they're visiting him. So I'm like, okay, enough, we've got all this thing, everything's, and so I'm like, okay, well, if the behavior changes, am I allowed to take him to his friend? So the parents said, well, they've just said that they can't, right? And they're not going to budge on that. So I'll take. But we had this conversation on the way to his friend. I said, well, how are we going to bring Mashiach if you don't listen? And I first asked him if he knows if he's right or wrong or whatever. But I wish I would have done that with my kids. But anyway, now you can practice on the grandchildren for the next generation to see something like that. And he says, no, he says, Mashiach can also come if we keep 2 Shabbos in a row. So I said, well, which is easier, keeping 2 Shabbos in a row or rectifying our midas? And there wasn't not a hesitation. He says, of course, keeping 2 Shabbos in a row. And then we had an interesting thing at our Shabbos table this Shabbos. One of my sons was saying, it's so funny, but we wouldn't chas v'shalom get into a car, turn on a phone or do anything, but we're not strict enough and careful enough on some of the things that we do, without even actually always thinking about it. Little things, even on your plate, doing bayre. He says, well, that's why we have to be continuously learning how to keep Shabbos. And I'm thinking to myself, we've been through really, when we were in Israel, we went down to the Nova site. We went to viewpoints overlooking Alumim. We saw the Iron Dome that's parked at the side. You can't imagine it. You can't imagine that we have people that are living in this way, and we're carrying on. And there's tourism, and there's all sorts of things, and you can't get in places, and restaurants are full. And we go to a rejuvenation center, and all these amazing, incredible things. And then you're staying in a hotel, and in that hotel, there are still families that are displaced because they have no home to go back to, or it's not safe anymore. And they've been living in a hotel for 13, 14 months. And you say, like, well, you know what? You think of it, oh, great. But there's no room service every day for them. There's also no washing machine that they can just go to. There's also no place that they can just cook a meal if the kids have had enough of eating hotel food every single night. Every single day. They can make these sandwiches. The kids are leaving from the hotel to go to school. We're living in a place which is so far from where we should be. And yet we're saying, and we're trusting that whatever Hashem is doing and taking us through is the right thing to do. So when we look at the way that we are supposed to be living and the things that we're supposed to be doing and how we're supposed to see, there was one beautiful lesson, many, many beautiful lessons that we can learn from what we took out from. We had Rebbetzen Gottlieb shared an insight into her new book. Rebbetzen Sarah Yocheved Riegler was sharing her insights into the 6 constant mitzvahs. If anybody saw her share from 2 Thursdays ago, and if you didn't see it, it's really worthwhile watching because it's so easy. It makes it so easy. Good morning. And it makes it so easy for us to just be aware of Hashem. And on Thursday, she spoke about the mitzvah of mezuzah. And it's actually incredible. Last night, somebody actually sent me this incredible clip that Zaka, actually, the story of how there was, I didn't get the whole exact story, but there was a boy who became very religious when he was 16. And the one thing that he did for his parents was he gave them his parents were divorced and he gave them a mezuzah. Because he says, what do you do? The father's got lots of money. How do you give somebody a present, when they don't need anything? Anyway, he gave them a mezuzah. And they were on the kibbutz, and he got a call to say that we have survived, but please go back to our house and get the mezuzah. So he says, if you've survived and burnt out house, like why would the mezuzah? He says, if we've survived, the mezuzah survived. And he goes back and he finds the house, and he sees at the outset of the house that this whole place is totally burnt out. There's can't be anything there. And he tells him where to go, and he looks on the front door, he tells him which room, and he goes to the door. And there's this mezuzah. The case of the mezuzah is burnt, but the mezuzah is still totally complete. Now, we can't fathom these things. But if we look into every part of our everyday life, and if we knew all the different things that Hashem was saving us from as we go, whatever we're doing and where we are, honestly and truly, we would just be in such awe that we wouldn't be able to do most of what we just do on a regular day. Just, wow. I was sitting yesterday, I was talking to my friend Lynn Myers, your cousin, and we just had an incredible challah with Lynn. Good morning, Shalamis. And it was actually, it was just
Good morning.
Good morning. Do you need something? And it was really, really incredible. And anyway, I'd love to bring this woman who did. There are very few people that, I'm a bit of a challah whatever, snob. But there are very few people. But it was about her connection and her spirituality and her heart that you just, oh my gosh, you actually can't make it up. The biggest problem is that she doesn't speak English. So I'm going to need translating like a full translator, but with that, it's still just bringing in that thing that you're not going to actually lose it. Anyway, we're talking about how I'm going to actually manage to do this. And I'm thinking, oh, really? Like, we've got to be very careful because you're not allowed to support the army, and that's the government rules, and that's for here. So I've got to support another project that shall come and do that won't be supporting the actual army. And as I'm thinking like, you know what, it's just a lot. And then there's a financial thing that you've got to think about, and you want them to go home with a certain amount of money. And anyway, I said, I'm looking and I'm talking to her and I'm looking up, and I hope you can see in Manchester. But when you look up and you just see and you feel like Hashem's like smiling at you, and you can feel like, look, there's the cloud, there's the sun coming through, there's the blue, there's the gray, and then you can see, those are going to be our rain clouds for a little bit later on. And I'm like, you know what? We're going to do something. We're going to do something. And you know why? Because of a lesson that I live by, and have lived by for a long, long, long time. But when you live by a lesson of a young man of, when he was probably 21, wrote down this lesson. We had the merit of having Rabbi Doron Peretz and his wife Shelley come and speak to us. We also went with them to Har Herzl, which is the military cemetery, to go to pray and to just say some Tehillim by their son Daniel's grave, which actually is awaiting his full body burial, because the only thing they have there is clothing that's in blood, and halachically that's enough to be able to make a place of kavura. And that's Shelley, the mother's safe place. She says that's her place where it fills her neshama. And one of the things that Daniel actually did was he kept, Shelley calls it a notebook, and Rabbi Peretz calls it a diary. So he kept a notebook diary. And he didn't like kind of write dear diary, but this is where he kept his thoughts. And when he became a commander, his thought process had, sort of concretized in what their job is. What is their job? And what he has to focus on. And he's in charge. You think to yourself, like, how is it possible? Yeah. Look at a 22, 23-year-old regular kid. Yeah. And these guys are commandos of tanks that are protecting Aristotle and all of us. And one of the things that he has written is, I don't know if it comes backwards by you, Imlo ani azmi. If it's not me, then who? If it's not me, then who? And, it's like a big thing when you're thinking about this in terms of army and terms of places, but actually it takes it on a much different level as well. Because, we can all think about it. I think especially as women, we can definitely look at it and say, well, if I'm not going to pick it up, who is? If I'm not going to tidy up the kitchen, who is? If I'm not going to do the shopping, who is? If I'm not going to do the cooking, who is? So we're really doing this all the time. We're living with that, but with a place of, imagine if we had the value system and the thought process of, I'm actually the commander here. If it doesn't happen, and you know what, that's okay. Because when you're in a job and you're running something and you're doing something and you've got the whole country and everything behind you and whatever you've got to look after, I'm saying, if it's not me doing this wonderful job, who is? And it's tough stuff. And I see many times, and when we went on this trip now, it was a bit of a challenge. Before, once we're there, it was just heaven. Once I decided 9 of us is enough, we're going. It obviously doesn't cover all your expenses. And then you've got to say, okay, well, and who is? He is. I'm okay. I'm doing his work. We're okay. And I went back and thought about a whole lot of projects, because one of the ladies on the trip says, you don't have to do this. I said, I know. She says, but you do it. So, Imlo nears me. If we're not going to do that, and if I want to, so we look at this and say, and all I want to do is bring people to understand the greatness of HaKadosh Baruch Hu and the beauty of our land and our people, of every single one of them. When we look at some of these hostages, how is it possible that they're coming out and saying, we kept Shabbos, we didn't do this? It's parents that were putting on tefillin and saying Hafrashas Challah, and we saw the clarity, the actual things that were happening when there were big public things, and then something would happen, and the next day you heard news about that person being alive and coming out, and it's just beyond. Now I'm going to tell you that the painful side is, what's the painful side? What about the people that did it and are doing it, and that didn't happen for them? What about them? Yeah, what are we going to say to them? And those are the times that we're going to have to say, we know HaKadosh Baruch Hu has a plan. Our child, look at Hirsch's mom. But what is she carrying on? She's the most outstanding orator, and it's a gift that Hashem has given her. And she's saying, even if I don't have my Hirsch back, this is what we're going to carry on doing. In what? In Hirsch's name. What did Shelley and Rabbi Perez do? They have given and done, and the people's hearts and lives that they've changed through the schus of this beautiful person. And we're saying we don't give up. We don't ever give up. We don't change. We don't give up. We don't do why? Because we are doing this because we know the ultimate goal. What's the ultimate goal? The ultimate goal is being with the Beit Shlishi. And we know that that's coming because that's the promise from Hashem. And how much longer can we wait? How many more plagues do we have to get through before Hashem goes, get up and get out? And I don't think it's very long. Get up and get out. So where should we be planned? So on Sunday night, we had a viewing of The Commandant's Shadow, which is a documentary of Rudolf Hess, his son, sorry, not Rudolf Hess's son and grandson, meeting with the Auschwitz survivor, the cellist of Auschwitz, Anita Wolfish, and her daughter Maya. And it's insane. And yes, it's not a movie production of how they came out and became religious and clean. It's not about that. It's factual. It's seeing the reality of what actually was. It's recognizing that the son of Rudolf Hess went back to his home. And now they're opening it up. So I have to be honest. I've got to check first if you can go in. We've got a Poland trip for Seed in the beginning of March. I'm supposed to be going on. And I said, absolutely no, I'm not going again. And then I think about my beautiful survivors and Lily and all these people. And I think to myself, maybe just for them, if we can change one person's life on the trip, maybe just for them. Anyway, I'm now having like another thing and thinking, do I really want to go? Maybe not. Because I believe we should be taking all these people for 1.5 days to Auschwitz and then to Eretz Yisrael. Let's have a look. Not to go and see that there was a Holocaust there and a Holocaust there. It's like, oh my gosh, it's just too depressing. But to be able to go and see that when you go to Eretz Yisrael and you're meeting with the people who have survived this ordeal in Sderot and all these places, then we understand and we see what's wrong. And we understand and we act. People are continuing living. They're living with pain, but they're living. And people are continuing. And you have a rejuvenation center where women can go to. But I believe that we should be investing our money not into Poland and giving all their hotels and the food and everything, all these, but we are supporting Yidden. But you've still got the Polish thing. So we're in between this whole place. And I don't know what's right or wrong, but I certainly do know that if we can change a person's personal growth through seeing something which was devastation, if they're going to change and continue, then we have to actually be able to do that. But I still believe we need to be going more to Eretz Yisrael to support the place in Eretz Yisrael. But when we see what people are going through, and they're still coming out, and they say, I know, we lost our son. We went to Har Herzl. And in March, where Daniel is buried, well, Daniel's clothes and things are buried, that line was really at the end. And now there's if this is the beginning of the new burial place in Har Herzl, so Daniel's over here somewhere in the middle, and there's now a whole nother section. And that top area now is also going to be filled very soon. So here is a young man standing at the kever, and one of the girls that was with us at Har Herzl, and she sees him and he's crying away. And she says, can I go give him a hug? And when somebody standing next to her just says, well, you better check that he wants a hug. Anyway, I'm watching her go down, and she gets to him, and she stands away. And then when I went down and saw when we were leaving, had a big kippah on, and she said, I'm a religious boy. Anyway, it turns out family are South African. There's an empty bottle on his friend's grave of monkey shoulder whiskey. And, you know, they're losing their friends. And yet they're standing there, and these beautiful soldiers, and they're weeping. And they're allowed to weep. And then they wipe away their tears, and he puts holding onto his gun, and he's there, and he says, and we all said to him, you know, that you should just be well and thank you. And then we go off. And we have to remind ourselves all the things that we have to be doing. So in our tiny little space of what we need to do, we have to take on this thought process in every which way. Imlo ani azmi. If I'm not going to work on my midas, who is? If I'm not going to help somebody that I see struggling and crossing the road, who is? I can turn off. Thanks. Right? If these, ask yourself the question. If we look at it and we feel, oh gosh, then put into our headspace that says, Baruch Hashem, I'm able to. Baruch Hashem, I can. Come on, Hashem, you see, it's a little bit hard for me. I don't feel like doing this right now, but we can. When I chose to even do this commandant's shadow, I'm thinking, what do I want people? I want people to see the truth. I want them to know. You want them to hear. And here you've got a son who's actually said, and since the documentary was made, Jürgen Hess, who's the son of Hess and his sister, both are no longer. And somehow Hashem actually arranged it that they would have their verbal thing. When you hear the sister speak, she's a sworn Nazi, and she dies that way. It's a fascinating thing. But when you ask the question, and they ask the question to, and Anita Wolfish looks at him in the face because they come to his house to meet and says to Jürgen Hess, to the son, he says to him, do you hate your father now? And it's not as simple for him to answer because they grew up in an idyllic world. Their Auschwitz for them was a beautiful home with a splash pool and a garden to play and fantastic toys that they had and great food and their happy mother and their father who was doing so well at work. Oh my gosh. And how our minds are able to suppress things. Because when he comes to his house, he stands in front of the house, stands there, and he says, I imagine the house to be so much bigger. Well, you were a little boy there. But he's got no recollection of the noise, the screaming, the smell, or the flakes of ash. And even his son says to him, do you think you've suppressed your memory? And the truth is that each and every one of us understand and know that we can convince ourselves of different things. We're safe, we're okay. I had somebody in a share last night, and she said to me, she's like, you know, when we think about things that we want to forget about, like, where do you want to go? You know, like what our thought process, like, well, things we don't really want to remember. Do we think about how, I mean, she has a friend of hers, and there was her friend came out of the Swiss Cottage station a few weeks ago, and there were all these pro-Palestinian people there, and really saying disgusting things, and death to the Jews, and da 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 da. And there were a bunch of policemen there, a bunch of policemen. And he said, "Oh, you're not going to do anything about this? Like, how can you just allow this to continue and to happen?" And basically, he folded his arms, put his hands, how they stand there with their hands in there. Nothing. And I said, I hope that's a lesson for you and for each and every one of us. That we have to remind ourselves that nobody's going to be there to protect us. Only HaKadosh Baruch Hu. And when everybody's going on and saying every time, well, let's see what Trump's going to do, let's see what Trump's going to do, I just interject and I say, Trump is being run by Hashem. Trump is like Paro. When Paro said, I will not let my people go, who do you think it was? Do you think he hadn't had enough yet? Do you think that Paro wasn't ready? Just get out of here, get out of here, get out of here. And Hashem hardens his heart. So whichever way it's going to be, whether it's those leaders that are going to harden their hearts, or those that are, when we start, every single one of us start recognizing this is not to do with any man, and reminding ourselves it's not to do with that. It is simply to do with how Hashem runs the world. Going to Israel, I was already in Eretz Yisrael, and a group of the ladies were coming together on the Sunday afternoon. So they were flying during the time that the 4 girls were released. And I actually think that it would have been more beautiful to be on the plane together with everybody when they announced on over the intercom. Can you imagine? Announcing over the intercom on every El Al flight, whether on the ground, wherever they were, flying, landing, whatever, the announcement came through to say that the hostages had been handed over. And at that moment, the euphoria and the excitement, then we're going to say the rest is in Hashem's hands. And all that we can actually do is make sure that we utilize all these little things and ideas to strengthen ourselves and to remind ourselves what we are able to do. So really, the Olam HaMidas tells us that most righteous people were not born with good midas. They had to work very hard on themselves until these traits became part of their identity and nature. People typically think that the individuals were born with good midas, and they rationalize their own shortcomings by telling themselves that they don't belong to this category. The truth is, however, is the opposite. The righteous worked on themselves to become the way they are. And the Drosh Haran tells us that the midas that a person instills in himself, whether positive or negative, can become part of his makeup to the extent that it bequeaths him to his children. Listen to this carefully. It has both sides, the good and the not. One of the lines that Anita Wolfish uses is she says, it's incredible. It took an ordinary person like Rudolf Hess, ordinary person, to become who he became and to instill the exact thing within all the people around him. Hitler maybe wasn't an ordinary person, but certainly Rudolf Hess wasn't any big whatever before. So we make a choice. He thought he didn't have a choice. He had to follow orders. So he found the best way to follow the orders. How can you think you don't have a choice to follow orders to murder as many people as you possibly can? Jews. So not people, Jews. Jews. I can't remember who it was. One of the survivors said today, told her father, she said, don't think that there are only however many terrorists there are. She said there are 2 million terrorists that live there. She said, how do I know that? Because I lived in a place where the little children from very little age are cursing out the Jews. They're all terrorists. We think we're getting rid of the terrorists. She said, don't kid yourself. We've got 2 million of them. They all need to. Because each and every one of them. And where does it start? With an evil thought and an evil person. That is beyond. But it says in Olam HaMidas, we make a choice. You can either choose to do something positive or negative. Lahavdil. Rebbetzen Minna Feldman, Oala Shalom, just passed away a few weeks ago in Bnei Brak. Very beautiful, stunning lady. I was zoicha to go to many times for Shabbos when I lived in Eretz Yisrael, mostly before I was married. And they are part of the Gur community. Her husband, Rabbi Feldman, would go many times to South Africa, go collecting, and became very close with a lot of the families. So when we were in Sem, we went to them for Shabbos. But the first time that I was actually in this home, first it was amazing. Everything was just fantastic. And this woman had 9 children plus a foster daughter, ran a gun, kept everything going. I don't know. It was kind of like, wow. The guest room was the only room in those days that had an air conditioner, which was real luxury 40-something years ago, 44 years ago, a real luxury. And in that room, when we came, there was also a bathroom that just for guests, small, very small shower and toilet. And there was snacks and drinks. And I felt like, we were being treated better than anywhere ever. Anyway, she was just calm, just beautiful and calm, and nothing fazed her. And I was like, how do you do this? And what did I say? What an amazing nature it must be to feel, like this is your beautiful nature. Look how Hashem blessed you with such beautiful patience and this amazing thing. And she laughed. And she says to me, to tell you the truth, I think I have to take you to visit my mother. And I want you to tell my mother that. So I said to her, what? So she's, because when I was 17, my mother sat me down and she said to me, you have a little bit of a fiery temper. And you don't always know, and you not seem to be really learning how to control that and to stay calm and things, but we can work on that together. But if you want to get married and you want to marry a Talmid Chacham, you've got to know that you have to work on this particular midah, and then Hashem should bless you with your right thing. But I wouldn't want to, it's hard for me to say that I would, say that this is a calm, patient, whatever kind of beautiful woman. Anyway, I don't know how anybody at that stage and age sort of says, okay. And she actually started learning, and I can't remember exactly what it was, but it must have been something like Olam HaMidas or Orchos Tzadikim or something with her mother. She was married by the time she was 18 and had her first child at 19. And she said to me, you know what, Joanne? I've been working on this since that day. And can I tell you a little secret? I work on it every single day still. I still work on it. And when she passed away, my friend told me, it was like, you want to just go and share this with the family, because it was made such an impact on me that even though I didn't manage to take it on the way she did and do it the way she did, it's still something that always says that everything that we do in our lives, everything that Hashem sort of challenges us with, is a work process for that moment. So it's not just the moment when, I'm running out the door on Sunday night, and Dalia knows I went to be Menachem Oval, and I thought, okay, put in the to somebody. She was a student with us in Leeds, and she messaged me Matzah Shabbos, but I wasn't here in the country anyway, that I would have wanted to know, because I liked her mother very, very much. So I thought I don't know when I'm going to get there. So I thought, okay, I've got this tiny window. Now my car is actually on the drive because it's not feeling so well. But and my son-in-law and grandson have gone to Eretz Yisrael for a few days to go and look at yeshivas. And suddenly I had this brainwave. Okay, let me see if I can get onto his car with insurance And then I can just do all the little things and everything that I need to be doing all the time. Anyway, I get onto the insurance, and it also didn't come with no stress. But it was quick. My daughter says, "You've got the car. It's on your name. You can use it." So we go pick up the car. Then I think, okay, I look at my timing. I've definitely got enough time to get to Mill Hill, to be there for 20 minutes, and to get home with at least half an hour to get everything sorted into the car. I'd bought the waters. I had to get them from the one car into the next car. The little pieces of cake that we're giving out to everybody, to get that sorted and get that into the car and get everything, and still get to the school that I needed to get to in Boreham Wood on time. And then I get to this place, and the houses aren't numbered. They're named. And you know when Waze says you have reached your destination, and you have reached your destination, but you're in the middle of a road that's got 15 houses. So I stop in the middle of the road, and I start walking up. And then I went back down one house, and I walked up. And it's raining, and it's dark, and you can't see the names. And I got so excited. I saw a little Mrs. I knocked on the door. Do you know these people? He looks at me. I'm thinking, really? This is such a small stretch. And you're Jewish, and you don't know each other. But I didn't say that. Then I found another Mrs. And the guy kind of also looked at me, and I was like, and then I phoned Dahlia, and my battery in my phone's dying. And I'm thinking, okay, anyway, Dahlia sends me a picture, but it's in the day, so I can't see it. And as she's telling me, and I'm looking for this brick house and the car, because there's a picture on somewhere, Google or whatever. And I sent her a message, but there was no reception. And as I'm thinking, done, finished, I've done my half an hour search, I'm going home, I'll message her and I'll come see her after she's gotten up from Shiva. I get a message that says, "Can you see the car with the flashing lights on the road?" And she's the Mercedes, and I can't see what car it is, but I see flashing lights. But it's 3 houses down from where I started, and it'd been down one. And I'm thinking to myself, Hashem, why didn't you put it in my mind to go down that way as well? I decided that that's where it would start. And then I said, wow, once she's seen that, and once she knows I haven't left, I better go in. And it just shortened my time, and everything becomes so. I have this wonderful coffee mug, and it has a wonderful lid that when it's closed, you turn it like this and nothing comes out. Nothing. But if you haven't closed it, oh my gosh, it pours out, because that's how you drink. And I had my bag of my blocks and the tablecloths and the stickers. Anyway, and it's in the bag. And like a little bit of coffee. And I'm just like, really? Did you really have to test me with this now? It's okay. It's okay. It's okay. I'm like, okay. Now you can go. And I did get there 12 minutes, 15 minutes late. But everything was there. And in a rush, we got it all done. And I just think to myself, you know, those are the things that Hashem is saying to us. We do really have the ability, when we focus on it, we're able to look at ourselves and say, so what does he tell us? He says, as we know, a person's mind has to rule over his emotions of his heart. And the power of the mind is inestimable. There are people who can train their minds to the extent that they will not feel when their body is in pain. And you know, where do we learn this from? We learn this from our tzaddikim. How many Gedolim stories have we heard about not having an aesthetic and having an operation done? And we think, how is that possible? If we can't imagine ourselves doing it, we can't imagine anybody else doing it. But when we know that the brain has the capacity to do that, the brain actually has the capacity to totally be there, that we can and have the ability to rule and to change everything. I met a young woman the other day at a kiddush, and she stopped me and she said, you know, Rebbetzen, I just wanted to share this with you. A few years ago, we had discussed it. She had struggled for many years with her weight, and we had spoken about things. And she says to me, you know what? And I'd introduced her to somebody. She said it wasn't the right time. And she looks fantastic. but she didn't want any medication or surgery or anything. She said it just became, she did the 12 steps. So she went to some show that they did. They have gift, I think it's gift, do this fashion show, all sizes, all everything, and everything goes. And she said she was so just loved it. And she said, but there was a woman there that she herself had been struggling and had just gotten herself to a healthy place. So she said to me, but I just want to thank you because you actually said, you know what, we can all. And there I am thinking, yeah, and you still got your 12 kilos to get rid of and you haven't done that either, you know? So you think to yourself, all these things, we have an ability to really understand that our minds tell us things, but they also play tricks on us. The same way that we can create the space where we don't feel the pain, I managed somehow to be allowed to eat, you know, a handful of your 15 nuts as a snack. And somehow I have that 3 times. But 3 times 15 is still 15. It's not 45 because it's a healthy snack, you know. So it's okay. It's okay. And it's such a funny thing because you know it. And I laugh at myself sometimes. How many times have you done 3? Oh, is it 3 or 4? I don't know because I didn't write it down. Right? So if we are really able to do this and we're able to understand, so he says, to illustrate, if a person insults another, human nature is such, especially if the offended person is sensitive, that he will be pained and saddened by the other person's words. But a person can train himself to ignore words like these as though he didn't hear them. Imagine. Oh my goodness. Imagine that, since all of the distress caused by these words stem only from his ruminating over them. If he chooses not to give them thought, he won't feel bad. This is simply an example, but in every situation, a person has an incredible power to choose to be strong and to behave in the most perfect way by using not his emotions, his intellect. And why is it told? Why are we told that a person who's insulted and doesn't answer back can give anybody a bracha and that bracha will be mekoyim? Why? Because it's so hard to overcome that midah that Hashem says, if that person overcame that, I'm going to take that and I'm going to actualize it. Yeah? It's a fascinating thing. Sometimes we only believe, you know, you hear these stories about the Baba Sali and Rabbi Yaakov Abu Chatzera flying on a carpet. It's like, hello, you know, where these things from? But when we understand what the Baba Sali is about, and we understand what the Abu Chatzera family is about, Hashem gives a special bracha, right? If we think that it's actually the person who's making the miracle, we're still wrong. Because it's only what comes through the bracha that Hashem listens to the person to activate that. I actually didn't know, and I've been twice in the, oh, look at that, the sun. Thank you, Hashem. Okay. I actually didn't know, but I know that people, I actually went many years ago. Our last part when we left the south, we went past the Baba Sali to go and daven by the kever. And somebody actually told me now that you can take a bottle of your oil that you're going to use for lighting your candles, okay, and leave it on the kever while you say your tehillim and your arak for any of the brachas that you want, and you take it with you and use it. Anyway, I'll have to go back to the Baba Sali again. Not that it's not such a bad thing to do. But again, if we're believing in the arak and the oil, you yourself can create that bracha. Me, myself, we've got to understand that we're talking to Hashem in a way that we believe that He's going to do what it is that we want Him to do. We just go through the vehicles of these holy, holy, holy people. When I was reading recently, listening to, I don't know if anybody ever listens to Rabbi Mendel Kesem, but a number of years ago, he actually went, about 20, 30 years ago, I don't know, he's told the story a couple of times, but I was listening to it recently, and he was talking about the things that are going on now, and He speaks a lot on current events to know where we are actually up to and how he's very calm about this. This is all matter of fact because actually, really, the way things are panning out at the moment, we can see that's the way the story is going to happen. And we're coming to the end of the story. So I'm just waiting for him to tell me. I'm just waiting for him to say, listen, guys, we're at the end of the story. Now it's time to pack our bags. Or is it going to be that when Mashiach comes, we're going to have an amount of time that we are going to be able to, or maybe it's going to be that Eretz Yisrael is going to become the whole of the world, and Eretz Yisrael will become Yerushalayim. We don't know, but we're going to wait and see. But while we're waiting, we do know that we have to better ourselves as people. We have to work on our midas. We've got to grow as people, and we've got to continue to see what it is and where it is that we can get to create and to make the world into a better place. So Sefer HaChinuch actually teaches us that the issue of how the Torah can demand us not to be envious of someone else's possession, the Torah can mandate external actions, but how can it tell us how to feel? And the Chinuch establishes that every person does indeed have control over his feelings and desires and can actually use his mind to choose that which he desires and that which he has no interest in. And this obviously is something that takes work, but we can see from the words of the Chinuch how much power we actually have in controlling our thoughts, our emotions, our desires, and making sure that our speech, our mind, and our actions all are in one place called Tiferes. If we're living in the world of our spheres, then we're living in the world of our behavior, because each sphere demands something different from us. And imagine if each of us could do this. And I don't know if I've mentioned this here before, but it's such a beautiful thing, and it's a wonderful way to look at the world. Rabbi Ephraim Goldberg was here from Miami. I don't know if you've ever listened to Rabbi Ephraim. He speaks on Emunah. There's a beautiful share on Emunah every week. And what's so beautiful is when you watch him speak, you know that he's like lives within his workings, and it's very special. So when we look at people around us, yeah, we're all different. He says, and we learn from what we do every single day. We all daven, hopefully, okay, Shachris, Mincha, Mariv, or Shachris, or Mincha, or Mariv, or something. And if we don't, even just use this as a practice. He says, at the end of Shemona Esrei, what do we do? What do? We step 3 steps backwards. We go there, and we go there. Oiseh shalom b'mromav, hu yaseh shalom aleinu. Okay. The easiest, most difficult thing in the world, okay? Step 3 steps backwards. Take yourself out of the situation. Look at it from the outside. Go left. Look at all the people that are to the left of me, all the people that are to the right of me, and recognize how different we all are. But how do we make shalom? Everybody's got their own place and their own point of view in our mind. So we take ourselves out and we look at a situation, we say, Oiseh shalom b'mromav, hu yaseh. And how? We're going to create that shalom through ourselves, through acknowledging that Hashem created every single person on this world and different to me. So we can tolerate everything that's different, but we have to acknowledge it as well. And it's not easy, okay? So that's why we have to understand that this is the potential of the greatness that each and every one of us have the power to really achieve in our differences. There's nothing wrong that everybody's not the same. I don't know how I'd be able to live with anybody like me in my life, right? I drive myself absolutely insane, okay? We've got to keep up with, you've got to do. And when we think about that, we really understand that really what Hashem is saying to us is that recognize one's level of midas, okay? So at a time, a person thinks that he is already finished perfecting a midah. but a person's mistaken to ever think that you ever managed to perfect a midah. He says he thinks this way only because he has never been tested seriously on that particular midah. For instance, if a person thinks that he is perfect in the midah of jealousy, in truth, however, the reason he does not envy others is that he thinks he is actually superior to all those around him. Clearly, he has not yet perfected himself in the midah of gaiva, of arrogance. Okay. A person like this will typically choose to live in a place where he is more prestigious than anyone else, or to work in a field in which he will easily be better than the others around him, even though his spiritual state would be better served if he were to live in a different place or work in a different field. The midah of jealousy is the underlying motivation for his choice of a home or job, but he is unaware of that. Okay. These are two types, okay, of grass in the world. There are two types of healthy grass in the world. Healthy green grass and weeds. When the grass is cut, the difference between them is not as apparent. When they grow, they are completely dissimilar. One is beautiful and one is ugly. I have actually been known to pull out some grass from a pot plant. We don't have grass in our garden because it doesn't look that bad and the weeds are ugly. The same is true of our middas. Okay. Superficially, many people appear similar in their middas, and there does not seem to be much of a difference among them. But at times of a difficult nisayon, a person's true middas become apparent, and then it is obvious that there is an extraordinary difference between one person and another. Okay? And we see that. We see that in our everyday interaction. Okay? And don't look out for other people's behavior and actions. Let's look out for ourselves, because it's much easier to see it in other people. Okay? One of our children came back from school many, many years ago, and she said, if you point one finger at someone else, you have three fingers pointing at you. Okay? So it's a little reminder that says point at somebody else, but when you point at somebody else and look out and point out their things, we have three things pointing back at ourselves. Therefore, a person should be aware of whether he truly perfected a certain midah, or whether he merely has not yet been tested in that midah. You know, there are many times that different things will happen in our life. And sometimes I think the hard part is that, you know, when you do something, when something happens, and I use this many times, and many, many years ago, well, it's already 11 years ago, 10 years ago, I had our grandson, who was blessed with being born with Down syndrome, had to have heart surgery. He was just one. And he had this little heart surgery and everything was fine and everybody was very happy and whatever. And less than a month later, he actually had a stroke. It could have been something from the heart surgery, but, you know, and it's all in Hashem's hands. Anyway, it was like a little bit of a trying time and week, and between gosh and home and this and everything else, whatever. And then one of my kids happened to be away, and I had their daughter staying with me, and she was crying because she wanted to go to party time Shabbat, and it's Friday morning. And I told her, we're going to party time Shabbat because they're all the bubbles, and she loves the bubbles. And in those days, I actually used to make sushi, 12 rolls of sushi every week for the Seed Kiddush. Now they probably wouldn't even take my sushi if I offered them because, you know, life changes. And there I was. It had been such a runaround week. I'm in my car. Anybody knows Golders Green Road on a Friday morning at 10 a.m. You know that it's a busy road, busy things happening, and a busy road and busy things happening. And I get to the corner, and as I'm driving out, I feel the car's a bit doo-doo. And I get to the stop street and this feeling, and I see in front of Accessory World, there's a parking, and the parking's empty. Now, what chance is that on a Friday morning at 10 o'clock in the morning? And I slide my car into the parking because I'm going to see now what's wrong with my car. And I see the petrol lights on. And I see that the dial of the petrol doesn't actually even move anywhere. It's like as low as it can possibly get. So I'm out of petrol. But I hadn't even noticed. Usually I notice when the light goes on and I know that I've got 1 or 2 trips back to Edgware and then I have to fill up, but nothing. Anyway, now I've got this crying granddaughter because she thinks that she's not getting to Party Time Shabbat. I've got the sushi that has to get to Edgware and I've got no petrol. So I phoned my husband and then I'm all calm. It's okay. It's okay. Anyway, by the time I finished this whole thing, my husband came, I took his car, took my granddaughter, had the sushi with me. My husband and son put petrol in my car, moved it onto the drive before 11 o'clock, so no ticket. And we got to Parties, we got to Seed, and literally they just put on the bubble machine. And I was like, ugh. And then I sat down for a few minutes and I just said, you know what? Thank you, Hashem. In those, all the things and the places. And for that moment, you say, okay, you know, I made it. I made it. I did it. I didn't even lose it. I did it. I didn't shout at anybody. I didn't this. I didn't that. I got it. I did it, you know? And it was such a bizarre thing. But I still use it as one of those examples because it's something that we note and we mirror and we feel within us. Our place is going to always be the place where we can understand when Hashem tests us. Okay? A person thinks that he doesn't have a temper, since he almost never gets angry, excepting Mr. Ployne, who always annoys him with the questions. The person needs to realize that except for Mr. Ployne is not an isolated exception. It is an indication that his patience extends only up to a certain point. And we all know that. Our patience has grown until Mr. or Mrs. Ployne knock on the door again, ask for another cup of sugar that they never return, takes an egg, comes and asks for 1 teaspoon of baking powder. Hello, like I'm in the middle of something. Do you have to ring the door 3 times? Did you not get that maybe I couldn't come to the... No, none of that. Because when there's an exception to something, we understand that these are the things that we continue on. And next week, we are going to talk about our greatest gift, which is the gift of this place of Tikkun Hamidus, the Ezra Hashem. And in the meantime, let's practice and say to ourselves, Im lo ani azmi. If I'm not going to do this job happily, if I'm not going to do a tiny little bit more of something, yeah, what's the hardest things are getting all these requests for charity and da-da-da-da-da. And you know what? If we can't do the money part, send a beautiful bracha. Okay? You should just be matzliach. I wish I could. And these are things that we want to be working with day in and day out. And you tell Hashem, I'm working on it. I'm really trying my best. Just, he notices, and I promise you he notices. And you know how we know he notices? Because he notices when we're doing well at something, he gives us a little test. Are you really doing that well? Always feel happy. Isn't that amazing? He comes and says, oh, and then he sends us another little test. And that's what we're, you just need to move the car. Yeah. And that's where we are. So we should just be blessed with everything that is good, with good midas, with reminding ourselves, and it's fine. When you're feeling like you fall on something, just say that means that I'm working very hard on it, and Hashem's coming to say, really? Or is it just Mr. Ployne who annoys us? Okay? So make a beautiful week. Thank you for being with us. And we should just continue to be mechazek, the world that we live in, to become a better place. And even if it's just us, don't worry about anybody else. When somebody is in that place that says, 3 steps back, oise shalom b'mamav, uyase shalom. And it should be aleinu the shalom, that we should all be together in that beautiful shalom. And I'm going to move my car because it's another car and we don't have a voucher for it. So lovely to see everybody and have a beautiful week. And Thursday morning, Rebbetzen Silver will be with us on Zoom. I know there's share also in Seed. And Thursday night on Zoom is Ora Goldberg on the power of our beautiful month of Shvat. She'eh Besorot Tovot for all of Klal Yisrael, or She'eh Besoros Tovos as well. Okay, make a beautiful day. Thank you for being with us.